Hey there! Welcome to the Flute 360 podcast. I'm Dr. Heidi K. Begay, and I'm a flutist, educator, coach, and podcaster. My God-given mission is to serve you. I am passionate about guiding you, the modern-day flutist, to discover your unique voice on and off the stage. The goal of this podcast is to help you thrive, both as an artist and as a musicpreneur. Go ahead and grab some espresso, your favorite notepad, and let's get to it. Today's episode 261 is titled, What Makes You Unique? Are you a flutist frustrated that your instrument doesn't accurately represent your artistic voice? We hear you. Not owning an instrument that will showcase your musical abilities and let your creative voice shine through can be frustrating. Let us help you change that. At the Carolyn Nesbaum Music Company, we have a team of flute specialists who have been working in the industry for decades, and they have the knowledge and the skill to help you find your dream instrument. They have a wide selection of piccolos, flutes, low flutes, and head joints to match your creative needs. To help you find your perfect instrument, call the Flute Shop at 972-985-2662 to schedule your flute trial today. Or visit their website at fluteforyou.com, where you can check out their instrument selection online. Follow the Flute Store through Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter for the latest news and updates. The Carolyn Nesbaum Music Company is truly your one-stop flute shop. Hey there, Flute 360er. Welcome back to the show, and I am so ecstatic to sit down with you and finally get to reconnect with y'all. Man, it's been a hot second, am I right? So with the beginning of the school year, NFA, traveling, seeing family, I have been super busy, as I know you are as well. Before we get into today's topic, I want to personally invite you to an upcoming event, and it is scheduled for Saturday, September 30th, 2023, from 11 a.m. Central to 1 p.m. Central Time. This is a 2-hour block where you get to connect with me and other 360ers from across the globe. Flutists from Finland, Oregon, Africa, the UK, and the list goes on and on. And I want to invite you so you can be a part of our 360 orbit. The first hour, we are going to have a special guest who is my dear, dear friend, Arthur Brewer. Not only is he a composer, but he is also a website wizard. And he is going to personally wave his magic wand and help us with our flute websites. This is something that I'm really passionate about because I have been picking your brains, and this is a hurdle for a lot of you right now. It's a new school year, right? And you're thinking about all of the new opportunities that are right around the corner for you, and you should be. Opportunities like new students, expanding your studio, onboarding yourself to be a guest presenter at upcoming institutions and universities, new clients, new gigs, etc., etc. But if your website really isn't working the way you want it to, then we have a problem. So join us for this website workshop with Arthur on September 30th, 2023, and he's going to help us with exactly that. And then the second hour, we are going to have a fantastic Flute 360 masterclass where people get to play, listen, and learn. So go ahead and jot down that date and time so you do not forget. And of course, I always provide the links in the show notes below where you can register and get all the details so you can be filled in and you know what's up. Okay, great. So speaking of NFA and the beginning of the school year, man, it has been so busy. And I know your schedules are probably really booked too. I hope that you had a fantastic summer, and I hope that you have an even better school year since we just started and the new harvest, the new year is upon us. So there's a lot to celebrate for those blessings coming right around the corner for you and for your studio. Speaking of immense blessings, I have been in deep conversation with y'all at Flute events, and I want to thank you. I want to thank you for personally clicking play every week through your favorite podcast app. I want to thank you for writing me text messages, DMs through Facebook and Instagram, email messages. I am so, so thankful. And the reason why is because these relationships mean the world to me. The fact that you are vulnerable and honest and candid with me at these festivals and in these messages just speaks volumes to the community that we are building together. You are sharing with me your aspirations, your dreams, your pain points, your hurdles, your losses, and I hold them and I hold these stories in your accounts dear to my heart. And because of this insight, because of these conversations, I'm able to serve you better. I'm able to be that much better as a friend and as a teacher and as a mentor. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And because of this dialogue that has begun at festivals like TFS, which is the Texas Flute Society, NFA, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Austin. I mean, I'm talking about festivals from the beginning of this year, 2023. And now I have a hot second to sit down with you and bring you up to speed and let you know that I'm listening. And the content that's going out these next few weeks is inspired from those conversations. So I just wanted you to know the headspace and the heart space in which I'm in right now so you can understand where I'm coming from. One of the biggest conversations I've been having lately is flutists, just like yourself, have been asking me about my pivoting story. Now, if you want to really get in deep into all of the nitty gritty and all the details, I highly recommend that you check out a previous episode that I did with my friend and colleague and co-business owner, Dr. Garrett Hope. He interviewed me through his podcast called The Portfolio Composer, and it's episode 250. And I will definitely drop the link below in the show notes so that way you can access it with ease. But I bring this up because I think a lot of people are asking me about my pivoting story because they want to pivot. Now, I know I stand on the soapbox of, hey, pivot into being a musicpreneur. And I get it. It has been said so many times, and thank you for being patient with me. But that's just one avenue. You can pivot into corporate with your transferable skill sets that you have learned from being a musician into a corporate job. You can pivot into being your own boss, i.e. being a musicpreneur. You can pivot and transfer the skills that you have honed being a flutist into another career, right? The possibilities are endless here. I just talk about pivoting into being a musicpreneur because that's how my path unfolded. And not that everybody wants to be a CEO. And if you don't want to be, hats off to you. That is A-okay. But people have been talking to me and asking this because I think a lot of Flute 360ers right now, they want a change within their own career and their own life. And when they get to see a small example and a glimpse into somebody's world of, oh yeah, I know Heidi. She's that flute podcasting chick let me ask her because she's paved her own path through her podcast. Maybe she can share some insight to me so that way I can get clarity for my own path. What does that look like for me? How would that unfold? Because with any pivot, I don't care if you are pivoting into being that CEO, pivoting into another field, it doesn't matter, right? It can be extremely daunting and exhausting. It can feel lonely. It can be tiresome. All the things. It can also be exciting. It doesn't always have to be, doom and gloom. It can be thrilling as well. And with all of these different emotions, I think comes questions, right? And you are seeking out those answers. So today I wanted to really highlight a huge theme that I am discussing with a lot of you through these different festivals. And that is what makes you unique. And I have a lot of different exercises and a lot of different thoughts here. And I have planned out I have outlined my thoughts, but there's so many different layers and I'm going to be as organic as I possibly can so you can see my thought process. Some of these thoughts are going to ebb and flow from one into the other. And that's the best way I can do this. This is the best way I can convey this information to you. There's no step 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not going to go into full out teacher mode. I'm talking to you, my friend. And this is the conversation that I would have with any one of my friends if I was sitting down with you right now in my home in Dallas, Texas. So if you are in a place right now in your music degree, undergrad, master's, doctorate, or your career, and you don't know what that next season looks like for you, this episode hopefully will shed some light onto your path and the questions that you have where you can start gaining that clarity that you are really desiring. Okay? So for me, when people ask like, hey, how did you get to this place? You know my story. You know that I was offered a job in China, bye-bye job because of the pandemic. Here I am. And that was a decision I made to be the boss, my own boss of my own flute path back in 2020. Fast forward into now, 2023, 3 years later, I have learned a lot. I have learned so much, and it brings me a lot of joy to bring those nuggets to you. So when people say like, okay, how did you make that decision, right? Well, I'm going to be very candid with y'all. Like, I feel like this decision was lovingly placed on my life because of the ordained purpose that God had for me and for my path, right? And you guys know I'm very candid about my faith. And so if I were to break down what I did and how I did it, that would be the basis. That would be the foundation. I heard his voice. He asked me to grow Flute 360, and here I am. And guess what? I wouldn't want it any other way. Swear to goodness, it is like my pride and joy. This is my digital baby, and I cannot believe I get to become friends with flutists like you from across the globe and work with you on all of these different levels. So that's my first piece of advice is if you can stop, pause, meditate, pray, reflect on this upcoming season, the season in which you feel a change is coming and you know a pivot is before you, then I would pause. I would take some time to really take an inventory of what's going on around you. So what I want to offer you today are some tools that could possibly really guide you as you are making this pivot in your career. Okay. Now, it's really interesting because the first thing that I want to convey to you is I want you to know that you are a unique individual. You have to know that. You have to feel that in your being. You have to be so comfortable and confident in your own skin that you could scream that from the rooftops. What makes you one of one? And the reason why I'm emphasizing this is because you are not always going to fit into, air quote, their boxes. You're not always going to fit into their job, right? Or the way that musicians have always taken on jobs in academia, an orchestral flutist, things like that. You may be wanting to step outside of that box, right? And whatever field you choose to be in, it's going to be beautiful and great. But if you don't fit into one of those traditional jobs and you're just like, oh my gosh, where am I supposed to be? This is such a headache. You're not alone. So I need you to really understand and to really know who you are at your core and what you bring to the table. There's an exercise that I do with a lot of my clients, and it's writing out your 40, the number 40, your 40 value points. I need you to write out what makes you you. What do you bring to the table? Are you organized? Do you have good time management skills? Do you have great soft skills? Are you a great team player? What about education? What about conveying specific points, to your audience through a presentation? Okay. Once you can actually write out those 40 value points, I'm telling you, seeing is believing. And I don't want you to actually type out these value points. I want you to write it down, pen or pencil to paper, because it's going to be ingrained in you differently. There's a lot of science behind, writing things out, what the brain does, how it takes in the information, yada, yada. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but there's a lot of science behind you retaining the information differently by you actually jotting it out. Okay. This will take you, kid you not, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And by doing this, after you jot down your value points, you get to take an inventory, look at the list and be like, oh, wow, I do have a lot of strengths. And my point to this exercise then is for you to then meditate, look at that list, breathe it in, and really digest it. And knowing your value points is so imperative, because no matter what your path is, whether it is the traditional path or a musicpreneur path, or you are pivoting into a different field, then you can go to that traditional interview with gusto, with energy, with confidence, and say, this is what I bring to the table. And you can be extremely articulate about your skill sets. Man, oh man, I cannot tell you what employers love that. You may not be the best public speaker out there. I know I'm not, right? But if you can convey those points with confidence and with high energy, man, you are going to be the guy or gal for that job. Okay. Or you can bring those value points into an air quote sales call with an upcoming client, family, or student. When, for example, the Johnsons, if they come to my studio for a flute trial lesson and they're like, okay, why should Johnny Johnson, why should Johnny take lessons from you? And I can clearly articulate, well, this is why. I have 15 years of professional flute teaching experience under my belt. Most, flute teachers in the Forney area, they don't have as much. Not that I'm comparing apples to oranges, but I can really be solid and say, this is why you would hire me. Another reason is because I upload audio recordings into my students' Google Drive folder every week, so they can hear a professional flutist playing their melodies in their earbuds week to week. That's going to tremendously impact their musicality and their development as a musician. And I can pull those nuggets off of my list at any given moment because I've done the work, I've stopped, and I've asked myself, what value do I bring to the table when it comes to blank? What are my 40 value points when it comes to me being a flute teacher? And then you can be really specific about your gems, what makes you unique under that umbrella. Or you go into a potential, corporation and you present your ensemble to them and say, hey, we want you to consider hiring our quintet for upcoming music gigs so we can play at your corporate events. Or maybe you have a chat with an upcoming bride or groom for their wedding. Why would they hire your ensemble? Why would they hire you as a musician for that upcoming ceremony, funeral, corporate event? You get the picture. You need to be able to articulate what sets you apart from the other ensembles in that particular region. I hope this helps. I'm telling you, whenever I do this with clients, it is really, truly eye-opening. I know it was for me. Now, another thing that I like to bring to clients, and it's funny, anybody who's ever bought a coaching service or a coaching package from me, they're going to be like, and I paid you for what now? Because you are literally giving away all of these fun exercises away for free to your podcast listeners. That's okay. They'll understand and they will really support this gesture. So another exercise I give to my clients is to think of a funnel, and the base of the funnel is at the top and the tip of the funnel is going down the page. So it's just an upside down triangle, an upside down cone. Okay. At the top, the base of the funnel, you are one of 1,000 flutists. Now we know there are way more than 1,000 flutists out there. If there were, this would be a lot easier, right? But now let's just imagine, hypothetically, you are one of 1,000 flutists. Now, to start making you one of one, we have to start going down this funnel and really chiseling away and really asking ourselves again, what makes you unique? So you're listing off all the properties, all the characteristics that can make you say, oh, look at that. I am one of one. I am not one of many. The point of this is, again, for you to really understand the unique thumbprint that you are within your community. So I'm going to split the cone in half. I'm going to split that number in half to one of 500. I am a female flutist. All right. Going down further, ask yourself questions like, what degrees do I have? What skill sets do I hone? What research have I done? What creative projects have I done in the past? What gets me really excited? What am I passionate about? What do people know me as? Or what do people know me for doing blank? Right? List that off. So for example, now we are one of, and I am one of 500. And so I'm going to keep going down until I'm one of one to show you an example. So I'm a Christian flutist. Okay, let's say, and all of these numbers are so hypothetical. Okay, it's arbitrary, it's out there, but you get the gist. Okay, I'm a Christian female flutist. So now I'm one of 250. I'm married. Okay, maybe I'm one of 150. I'm married to a Native American man. And you'll see the significance here in a bit of why I said that. Maybe I'm now one of 100. Okay, I've done Native American flute research for my master's thesis. All right, one of 75. I also have, and I own 3 companies, a podcasting company, a music live production company, and then my flute studio. All right, one of 50. I keep going. I keep chiseling, right? I have my doctorate. Okay. One of 25. That's not too bad. There's not a lot of female Christian flutists who have their doctorate, who own 3 businesses, right? And who have done Native American music research. Now I am one of 25. Keep going. Oh, there are 5 to 7 flute podcasts out there, and I'm the host of one of those 7 shows. One of 7. Now, do you see how we're getting closer, closer, closer? Of the 7, there's another flute podcaster out there who also has her doctorate, and that's Dr. Katie Masad. Now I'm one of 2. And then obviously, then the distinction between me and the other host would be I'm Heidi, Native American, research, things like that. Now I'm one of 1. See, that only took me about 30 seconds. Sorry that I painstakingly went through that whole thing. I'm not showcasing my story to bore you. I'm doing it for you so that way you can be inspired. So you have an example of what that funnel exercise would look like for you. That only took 30 seconds, right? So again, seeing is believing. Jot it down, and I want you to be able to articulate extremely well, again, what makes you one of 1? What are the value points that you bring to the table? And start practicing these things out loud. Practice your elevator pitch. Bring all of these things together in a few sentences. So when you talk to those potential students or families or clients, you can get right to the point and say, oh, yes, there are 1,000 flutists out there, but this is how I'm different, and this is how I can serve you in this capacity. So once you really acknowledge, right, and once you really start believing what makes you a unique individual, then I promise you, your confidence is going to go through the roof. Your anxiety is going to start melting away, and the energy that you bring to new relationships, to new opportunities is going to flourish. I promise you. Okay, I pinky promise you. And what better way to really represent yourself and to deliver yourself to these new people who could possibly open up new doors for you and for your career? That's what's hireable, is the energy that you bring. And that energy that you bring is being stemmed from your confidence. If you can articulate what makes you a unique individual, and you can say it with gusto, right? Then your employer, the client, the family, they are going to be that much more excited to work with you. Now, the next question is niche, right? How do I know my niche in the flute industry? Well, you don't have to write this out in stone. This is not written out with a permanent marker. Again, you are a unique individual. There are many facets to your being. Okay? Maybe you love dance and flute. Maybe you love crocheting and flute. You don't have to be just a crocheter. You don't have to be just a flutist. You can maybe find a unique way to combine those different talents and passions and bring that to the table and serve your community in that way. So another exercise that I do with my clients a lot of times is another exercise that you get to write out. You betcha. You guessed it. Take out another piece of paper and pencil, and you're going to draw 4 circles. Now, the reason why I'm doing a lot of exercises today is because, again, from past dialogues, past conversations I've had with you, this is where my headspace is right now. But also, I've been a guest on some recent podcast shows, and these exercises that I've brought to those podcast episodes, they have really resonated with the podcast host. So I wanted to save you the trouble of having to go through multiple platforms and tracking down these exercises. And I wanted to marry it together and put it into one episode for you. So in this Venn diagram, there are 4 circles, and each circle represents a different thing. Now, the intersection of where these 4 circles come together, that's where you want to be. Okay. So circle number 1 is, what are you passionate about? What gets you up in the morning? Circle number 2 is, what are you good at? What skills are within your wheelhouse? Circle number 3 is, what can you get paid to do? And the fourth circle is, what is missing in the market? Where is there a void? What hasn't been done yet? And the intersection of those 4 circles is where you want to be. Again, you can't just listen to this episode and say, oh, those are 3 neat exercises. That's cool. No, you actually have to go through the activity, do it for yourself. And that's where you are going to gain the clarity from the answers that you put down pen to paper. Okay? So this is an extremely tangible activity that you can pursue for yourself. And once you realize again what value you bring to the table as a unique individual within your niche, and I'm using that word so loosely, okay, you can then flourish. You can then put the post in the sand and say, this is my environment. This is where I'm going to plant myself. And this is how I'm going to serve my community in the vicinity around me. You can own it. You can be confident in this space. And then you can start blossoming where you have planted your seed in the ground. And this is what I want for you. I want you to have that clarity of where you want to be planted and how you are going to do that and what kind of seed you're planting for yourself, right? So I hope this helps. I hope this gives you that clarity as you are thinking about this new season. And what a better time to be talking about this and having this conversation as we are literally going into the fall 2023 season. As you know, my husband is a Navajo man, and a lot of the Navajos, they call themselves Diné. And the Diné culture actually treats this upcoming October, or any October of any year, as the new harvest. And with that new harvest is their new year. So just like us, how we set up new goals and resolutions for our upcoming new year, they do the same sort of thing, and they identify and they acknowledge the harvest season as the beginning of the new year. So whether it's your new year as a student, a professional, a teacher, make it a point to say, okay, I'm going to carve out 10, 15 minutes and go through these 3 exercises. If you are in a space of recognizing and acknowledging that a new season is before you, but you don't know what it looks like just yet. And it's okay. It's okay not to have all of the information right now. It's okay not to have all the answers before you all figured out. I know you as a flutist because I empathize with you. I am one too. I like to have all my T's crossed and all my I's dotted before I take action. Guess what? Some of the most beautiful seasons in my life has been when I've actually took a leap of faith and went into the unknown without knowing all the answers for the upcoming season, when I was looking for a change, when I was wanting a pivot in my career or in my business. You will not have all the answers. You do not have a crystal ball, and that is okay. But hopefully these 3 activities will give you insight into what that new direction could look like for you. Now, one of my disclaimers is, as you're going through these activities, you need to be really honest with yourself. And if you're having a hard time answering some of these questions, then ask some loved ones like family members, siblings, spouses, partners, friends, to give you feedback and insight that perhaps you don't see for yourself. That is a-okay. That's not cheating. Okay? So, going into this fall 2023 academic year, another thing that really resonated with me was when I was on the car trip to Phoenix for NFA 2023. I had a huge aha moment. And again, I know that this episode seems a little discombobulated, but I swear it's not. There is a running theme here. And one of my aha moments came from, again, past conversations that I've had with flutists like you in DMs and emails. And that stems from your origin story. This is something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and it actually came up in a recent Flute 360 Accelerator Program Saturday session. And what it stems from is knowing, again, who you are, your roots, your origin. And this could be your fourth activity for today. All of these activities have a common thread that ties them all together. Hopefully you can see my logic behind all of this. I swear I'm not crazy. I have not gone mad. So, your origin, your roots, this idea has been coming to me lately, and I think it could help you as you are making your own pivot and deciding what is new for me in this upcoming season for my life and my career. Go back to your childhood. Take an inventory and jot down 3 to 5 defining experiences or characteristics from your childhood, preferably from you being born up until maybe 13 or 16. And the reason why I had this aha moment was I was connecting the dots from past conversations with 2 specific guests through the Flute 360 podcast. And those gentlemen include Professor Michael Lynn and composer Christopher Caliendo. Now, these episodes are like eons apart. Christopher Caliendo was episode 34, and Michael was episode 245. So we're 200 episodes apart, right? But both of these gentlemen had said something in our conversations, and it made me go, aha. And having this insight from your childhood and defining what these 3 to 5 characteristics are for yourself could be another defining activity, another defining aha moment for you as you are seeking out your upcoming season and where you want to be within the Flutes community. What is your place, right? And Christopher had said something about how he's not surprised. Him being a composer of, salsa, Latin music, very energized, dance-like music, right? Him writing music for film scores and him being, this Italian cook and cooking up Italian pasta and linguine and spaghetti and pizza. He's this wonderful chef. And he goes, I'm not surprised where I am as an adult. Because if you look at my childhood, you can see these stories, you can see these glimpses into cooking and old Western movies and dance fiesta movements and stories woven into and throughout my childhood. And look where I am as a man, who's married and has a child now. And then Michael Lynn was talking about how he was and is an Oberlin flute professor of the early music and of the traversal flute. And he was talking about how his mom had certain instruments in the living room, right? Again, I'm paraphrasing both of these gentlemen's talks. So you can go back and listen to E245 and E34 for more details. But Michael was talking about how his mom had these older instruments, harpsichords, early period instruments in their living room. And he goes, I went to go study flute and I did this and this and that. And here I am. As an older gentleman, I am a flute professor, an early music professor at Oberlin College. And I go, look at that. Hindsight is a beautiful thing. Look where I'm at. I can't be surprised. Look at my roots. Look at how I was programmed and where I am now. I cannot be surprised. Those characteristics, those experiences, the people in your life during your formative years, is so crucial to your programming as an adult. So I'm just going to tell you my story real quick so that way you can get more clarity into what I'm trying to convey to you right now. So my aha moment was God really put on my heart a time when I was kind of like poo-pooing myself and putting myself down for not having the desire to be an orchestral flutist. I don't know how or why that even came about, but there was a part in a season in my life when I was like, I was noticing all these people were asking me like, "Oh, have you done these orchestral auditions?" I'm like, "No." Why? Because in my heart, really, I was driven towards education. And I felt kind of bad and I felt ashamed that I wasn't pursuing orchestral auditions. So for a while, I was going to these auditions and traveling around the country because I thought I had to. I thought I needed to. I thought I should because, air quote, that's what you do, right? And I was trying to, again, fit a round peg in a square hole. It wasn't working. And so I was beating myself up like, why can't I be successful in this space? Why do I get so freaking nervous where I crumble and I fall apart and I have no desire to learn these orchestral excerpts or to go to these auditions? And my aha moment was something that God had put in my heart. And it was, look at your childhood, look at your program. Look at your roots. Look at your origin story. And my origin story is really cool because I was brought up in the church and I have, from both sides of the family, missionaries from my mother's side and my father's side from Japan, Africa, and different parts of the world. Another part of my origin story was because I was brought up in the church, I was playing music for worship services. I was dancing ballet at the ballet studio. I was playing my flute for dance performances in the church, for concerts and recitals. And my father was a missionary son outside of Tokyo, Japan. My maternal grandmother, she was obsessed with Native American culture. She collected anything and everything under the sun about Native American art, books, chief blankets, history. She taught me how to weave baskets, dream catchers, and the list goes on and on. And then I look at my parents, and for most of us, our parents are two tremendous forces within the development of our childhood years, right? Both of my parents dreamed of being teachers. They never were, but that's the occupation that they wanted to be. And my mom specifically would talk about how she dreamed of being a business owner of her own Debbie's Hallmark store. So what God put in my heart was, it was so interesting. It's like, when did you see orchestral musicians in your life? Not that I couldn't aspire to be that. I'm not putting anyone into a box and saying, oh, because your parents weren't orchestral musicians, you can't be. That's not my point. He specifically was showing me like, look at your programming. Look at the experiences and the people who were around you, who shaped you, and who molded you into the woman that you are now. And for me, I was seeing aspirations and core values into the fine arts, music, education, missionary work, technology, different cultures, languages. That's what was embedded into my core. And fast forward 20, 30 years later, look at where I'm at. I'm integrating the technology into podcasting and using education into this digital platform, into a space that I really love. I love people. I love you. I love sharing information with you. And we get to cross these international borders. Here's the international piece, with flutists from across the globe. This is not just a regional, local, national thing. This is an international platform. I'm married to a Navajo man. My brother-in-law is Kenyan. And for him to show that to me, I was just totally awestruck It blew my mind. And again, if your parents were a plumber, a janitor, I'm not saying that you have to then be a janitor or you have to be a plumber. And I gave that example in a recent Flute 360 Accelerator program session, and we all kind of chuckled because, even if your grandparents were plumbers, right? Look at that. Okay. Basically the flute is a glorified tube, right? It's a glorified steel tube. So there's that. But what is your origin story? Who are the people who molded and shaped you? What were the experiences that you had? Okay, that can give you also some glorious insight into your next season. And again, this could be a reminder for you. This could perhaps not be new news to you at all. And that's okay. But maybe for those who are seeking what that new season and that new chapter is for their life, maybe this reminder could guide you that much easier to really figure out where you want to be. What are you passionate about? What is missing? What can you get paid to do? What are you good at? And then notice your origin story. Look at those breadcrumbs. They are there. They're right before you. Just open up the blinders just a little bit, look around, and notice what's in your past. Where do you want to go? Where are you right now, currently in your present, right? Those roots could be real eye-openers for you as you are unlocking your future goals. I hope that this episode has brought you value. Thank you so much for letting me just purge and be with you in this moment and for me to pour out my thoughts, ideas from me to you. I cherish our relationship. And remember, on September 30th, 2023, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Time, we have a great time to connect and to learn about artistry, music, life together, and also some great tips on website building. Here's to a great week, and we'll talk soon. Thanks. Thank you for listening to the Flute 360 podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review through your favorite podcast app, such as Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, among others. Thank you. Let's talk about flute.